$47 million. They blew it all building 19 commercial buildings, right on my land, no permission, zero questions. I'm Alexander. Behind me, fresh grocery store, pharmacy, coffee shops. Brand new strip on my 47 acres in Colorado. Asphalt still hot. That screaming woman? Vivian Blackthorne, HOA president. 3 months ago, she jabbed her finger at me.
Get off my land, trailer trash May, before I call the cop.
She had no clue. I've owned the deed since 1987. It's been chilling in my kitchen drawer. I could have stopped them day one, killed the bulldozers, sent her lawyers packing. But nah, that's no fun. I smiled, waved, brought the crew cold water, watched them sink every last dollar over 18 months. Then I stepped up, deed in hand, with the biggest smirk ever. You, stop them early or let them bury themselves. Drop your wildest HOA nightmare below. Let me back up. 2 years ago, I was Alexander Wellington, 52-year-old electrician from Denver, recently retired, recently widowed. Cancer took my wife Sarah after a 3-year battle that drained every penny we'd saved. Chemotherapy, radiation, experimental treatments. We threw everything at it, lost anyway. I was broke, broken, and ready to disappear from the world. Then great Uncle Silas died. Crazy old hermit I'd met exactly twice at family reunions. Owned 47 acres in Pine Ridge Valley, Colorado. Prime real estate 20 minutes from Vail ski resorts. Property values skyrocketing, but Silas lived like a mountain man. Paranoid as hell, filed his deed in some obscure county office back in 1987, paid taxes religiously for 36 years, but never developed a thing. His house? Pack rat paradise. Newspapers stacked ceiling high, coffee cans full of bent nails, and the musty smell of decades-old coffee grounds mixed with motor oil. Took me 3 dumpsters to clear it out. The land itself looked worthless to most eyes. Overgrown fields, unclear boundaries, no utilities except a well and septic. Perfect for a broken-down widower who just wanted to hide and work with his hands. I hauled my mobile home to the northwest corner, set up a woodworking shop in Silas's old barn. Cedar shavings and sawdust became my therapy. The sound of my table saw drowning out memories of hospital machines. Life got quiet, peaceful even. Should have known it wouldn't last. Enter Vivian Blackthorne. White Tesla Model S purring up my gravel driveway on a Tuesday morning. Out steps this 58-year-old woman dripping pearls and entitlement. Designer suit, perfect hair, attitude that could stop traffic. She's HOA president of Ridgemont Estates, the massive development that sprouted around my property like expensive mushrooms. 500 luxury homes averaging $800K each, 47-page bylaws, $500 fines for wrong mailbox fonts. The works. Vivian brought muscle, 2 security guards in matching polos following her like trained seals. I'm on my porch in work boots and flannel, holding coffee that tastes like motor oil. Morning, I say. You're trespassing on HOA common land. No hello, no introduction. Her designer heels click across my wooden porch like a judge's gavel announcing doom. I nearly choked on my coffee. Lady, I live here. Not for long. She produces a surveyor's report with the flourish of a magician. Your mobile home encroaches 3 feet onto HOA property. That's trespassing, environmental violation, and aesthetic degradation. The sheer audacity. This woman shows up on my inherited property, tells me I'm trespassing, while demanding money I don't have. Her report looked official. Fancy graphics, gold seals, probably cost more than my truck. Meanwhile, Uncle Silas's property map was hand-drawn in crayon and taped to my kitchen wall. What's this gonna cost me? I asked, playing the defeated old man. $50,000 settlement or immediate eviction proceedings? 50 grand, more money than I had in the world. Give me 30 days to figure something out, I said. Her smile could freeze hell in July. See, I'm not unreasonable. 1 month. After they left, I walked my property lines using Uncle's coffee-stained map, every measurement precise despite the crayon markings. Her HOA common land included the massive empty lot where construction crews were mobilizing behind orange fencing. Posted signs showed architect renderings, Ridgemont Commercial Plaza, 19 commercial buildings, grocery store anchor tenant, pharmacy, coffee shops, boutiques, fine dining, the full suburban paradise. That evening, I dug Uncle Silas's deed from the kitchen drawer where I'd stuffed it months ago, filed properly with the county in 1987. Legal description matched his crayon map exactly. I owned every square foot they were planning to develop. Most people would have marched over there immediately, waved that deed like a battle flag, shut down construction, destroyed dreams on day one. But where's the fun in that? Instead, I made fresh coffee, sat on my porch, and watched sunset over what would become the most expensive real estate mistake in Colorado history. The next morning, bulldozers rolled in. I waved from my porch like the friendliest neighbor in the world. Vivian couldn't leave well enough alone. Week 3 of construction, she returns with an army. HOA lawyer, county building inspector, some bureaucrat claiming to be environmental compliance officer. They march across my property like conquistadors claiming new territory. The inspector looks miserable, probably promised easy cash for rubber stamp violations. Multiple septic violations, he announces, squinting at a clipboard he's clearly reading for the first time. His breath reeks of stale cigarettes and moral bankruptcy. Meanwhile, the sound of diesel engines rumbles from her construction site, concrete mixers backing up with those annoying beeping sounds. $2 million already invested in site preparation. Workers shouting instructions in Spanish while machinery eats money by the hour. This is obvious harassment, I tell them. Her lawyer, sweaty little man drowning in an oversized suit, mops his forehead with a wrinkled handkerchief. Mr. Wellington, my client is prepared to be reasonable. $25,000 settles all violations. Very generous offer. Here's where I remembered something my old electrician mentor taught me. When someone's desperate to close a deal fast, they're usually hiding something expensive. I'll pay it, I said, watching Vivian's eyes light up like slot machines hitting jackpot. She thinks she's bleeding me dry, forcing me into bankruptcy to abandon my worthless mobile home. Reality? I'm buying time while her investment grows exponentially every single day. Need 90 days to liquidate retirement accounts, I add, playing the struggling retiree perfectly. 60 days, she counters, smelling blood in the water. Deal. We shake hands. Her palm feels like a dead fish left in the sun. Behind her, excavators dig foundation trenches for what will become the Anchor grocery store, another $1 million hole in the ground. Sarah used to say patience was my superpower. Took me 3 years of asking before she agreed to marry me because I never pressured her, just waited for the right moment. Same principle applies here. Rush the reveal, get pocket change. Let them fully commit. That's retirement fund territory. That afternoon, I wander over to meet the construction foreman. Javier Rodriguez steps out of his air-conditioned trailer, wiping concrete dust from calloused hands. You the neighbor everyone's talking about? He asks in careful English. Guilty as charged. He offers me an ice-cold Coke from his cooler. The fizz tastes like victory, though he doesn't know it yet. Senora Blackthorne says you're moving soon, he mentions diplomatically. We'll see about that. The workers start calling me El Jefe Tranquilo, the quiet boss. Every morning I walk through their site and they wave like I'm inspecting the work. The irony makes my coffee taste better. By month 2, Vivian launches her media campaign. Local newspaper runs a front-page puff piece about economic revitalization bringing 400 permanent jobs to Pine Ridge Valley. She poses for photos beside my mobile home like it's a conquered fortress, one manicured hand gesturing dismissively at my temporary eyesore. Sometimes progress requires making difficult decisions about blighted properties, she tells the reporter with practiced concern. I watch from my porch, coffee mug raised in mock toast. The photographer captures my wave in the background, future evidence of my cooperation during their trespassing. Construction hits major milestones weekly, steel frameworks rising across all 19 buildings, electrical contractors arriving in white vans, plumbing trucks lined up like an invasion force. Every trade represents another million they can't recover once truth emerges. Vivian starts planning her inevitable victory lap. Grand opening ceremony scheduled for next summer. Governor's office contacted. Regional Bank already paid $500,000 for naming rights to First National Plaza at Ridgemont. She even hosts an evening cocktail party for future commercial tenants. BMWs and Teslas park bumper to bumper outside my door while she schmoozes grocery chain executives on what she believes is her property. That mobile home situation will be resolved shortly, I overhear her promising a pharmacy chain representative. We're handling it through proper legal channels. Situation. That's what 40 years of property ownership becomes in her vocabulary. The beautiful irony. I'm documenting every conversation, every permit, every progress report left scattered around the job site. building a legal case file worth more than most people's annual salaries. Javier starts saving me the best construction photos. For your scrapbook, Jefe. If he only knew I was building evidence for the biggest property law case in Colorado history. Week 8 brings escalation round 2. The inspector returns with creative new violations. My woodworking shop apparently violates residential zoning ordinances that didn't exist last month. 15,000 in retroactive business permits, he declares, sweat already beading on his forehead despite the cool mountain air. I'll shut down operations, I tell them, shoulders slumped in apparent defeat. Need 2 weeks to clear everything out. Vivian practically purrs with satisfaction. Another victory, another step toward total control. That weekend I move all my equipment to a storage unit in town. Not because I'm surrendering, because I need my workshop space for something more important. The empty barn becomes my command center. Construction photos organized by date. Timeline mapped across the walls. Uncle Silas's deed photocopied and laminated like a battle plan. Every morning I perform my sacred ritual. Coffee on the porch, watching progress on buildings worth more than most lottery jackpots. All sitting on land I've owned since 1987. By month 4, Vivian's confidence hit nuclear levels. She returns with fresh ammunition, fire marshal inspection. My empty workshop apparently poses significant safety risks to surrounding community. Fire Marshal Bob, pudgy guy who clearly wished he was somewhere else eating glazed donuts, trudges through my barn with theatrical concern. The smell of old sawdust and motor oil hangs in the air like evidence of crimes I never committed. Electrical hazards, he announces, pointing at wiring I installed perfectly to code. Improper ventilation, chemical storage violations. What chemicals? I moved everything to storage weeks ago. The place is cleaner than most people's kitchens. 15,000 in safety upgrades, Bob declares, reading from obviously pre-written script. Here's where I remembered my father's advice about dealing with bullies. Give them exactly what they ask for, just not how they expect it. You got it, I said, watching their faces register shock. But I'll need proper building permits for electrical work. County approval process runs, 60 days minimum? Bob shifts like he needs a bathroom break. Vivian's lawyer whispers frantically in her ear. She thinks I'm stalling out of desperation. Reality, I just bought 6 more weeks while her construction budget burns $8 million more. Every day of delay makes her investment heavier, my eventual damages astronomical. 45 days, Vivian snaps through gritted teeth. Perfect, I'll start paperwork tomorrow. That afternoon I stroll through their construction site, halfway point reached. Concrete foundations complete across 19 buildings, steel framing rising like a metallic forest against Colorado sky. The sound of rivet guns echoes off mountains, industrial symphony playing my personal victory march. Javier shows me updated architect renderings, pride obvious in his weathered face. Grocery anchor store opens first, then pharmacy, coffee chain, 12 boutique shops. Beautiful project, no? Absolutely gorgeous, I agree sincerely, because it is beautiful, just not theirs to build. Workers invite me for lunch from their food truck. Tacos taste like celebration, though they don't know why I'm celebrating yet. Vivian escalates her media campaign. Regional newspapers eat up her rural economic transformation story. She poses in borrowed hard hat, pointing at blueprints like she's personally hammering nails. We're creating opportunity where none existed, she tells Denver Business Journal. Sometimes that requires removing obstacles to progress. Obstacles. In Vivian's corporate dictionary, that's me. The article details projected tax revenue, job creation, regional economic impact, $2 million annually in rental income from 20-year leases already signed. Vivian claims full credit naturally. No mention of the squatter situation she's still handling. Meanwhile, my daily ritual brings increasing satisfaction. Morning coffee on the porch, watching millions burn on my property. Workers wave and shout, "Buenos dias, jefe!" like we're family. We're getting there. Week 16 delivers Vivian's most creative assault yet. Environmental Protection Agency inspector arrives, except it's one nervous guy in a rental car claiming my septic threatens groundwater contamination. Immediate remediation required, he squeaks, producing forms that look photocopied from a mail-order scam kit. 50,000 for proper environmental assessment. 50 grand. Her extortion demands keep climbing like a poker player going all in on a busted hand. Sarah taught me something during her cancer fight. When doctors start throwing big numbers and urgent deadlines, slow down and verify everything. Usually reveals panic or fraud. Show me the contamination evidence, I said calmly. Fake EPA guy fumbles through his briefcase like a student who forgot homework. Laboratory analysis pending, but preliminary indicators suggest I'll need those lab results before spending $50,000. Vivian's face cycles through 3 shades of red. The contamination risk to the community will be properly documented before I write checks. They storm off in frustrated silence. Another delay successful. Another month of irreversible investment. That evening, I calculate their spending. $18 million and accelerating. Each trade contractor represents another million committed to buildings sitting entirely on my inherited land. The math grows more beautiful daily. Summer construction hits overdrive. Roofing crews swarm like ants. HVAC trucks lined up for installation. Parking lot preparation begins. The project transforms from concept to reality faster than expected. Vivian starts pre-selling grand opening tickets. $500 per person for community celebration dinner. Governor confirmed attendance. Regional business leaders invited. Local orchestra hired for entertainment. She's planning the victory party before confirming property ownership. Peak Vivian arrogance. I buy 2 tickets. One for me, one honoring Uncle Silas's memory. Week 20 brings building inspectors' final compliance review. Same sweaty bureaucrat, fresh script of violations. Structural concerns about mobile home proximity to commercial construction, he announces, mopping his forehead despite cool mountain air. Creates liability issues requiring temporary relocation. How temporary? I ask. 6 months, maybe 8. 8 months, just long enough for project completion and making their mistake permanent. I'll consider relocation options, I tell them. That night, standing on my porch, security lights illuminate their progress like a stage production. $28 million invested, 70% complete. Point of no return approaching rapidly. Time to contact my Denver lawyers. Week 22 unleashed Vivian's inner psychopath. Daily harassment became her full-time hobby. Monday, noise complaints about my generator running past 9 p.m. Tuesday, welfare checks, claiming I looked suicidal. Wednesday, reports to Postal Service that my address doesn't exist. Thursday, she tried classifying my mobile home as abandoned junk vehicle. I'm sipping coffee when Officer Martinez arrives, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. The morning air carries the smell of fresh paint from her construction site. Workers applying final coats to 19 buildings worth $40 million. Sorry, Alexander. Someone claims this trailer's been sitting here abandoned for months. I gesture at steam rising from my mug. Do I look abandoned? He chuckles despite the awkwardness. Lady filing complaints used to practice law back east. Knows how to weaponize bureaucracy. Used to practice? Got disbarred in Connecticut, real estate fraud. Moved here 3 years ago. My coffee suddenly tastes like Christmas morning. Vivian's got a criminal history in exactly the field she's screwing me over. That afternoon, construction hits the home stretch. Building shells complete. Electrical and plumbing finished. The sound of nail guns rattles like celebratory gunfire as crews install final exterior details. $35 million invested and counting. Every harassment attempt just inflates their eventual catastrophe. Vivian's media tour reaches peak narcissism. Colorado Business Monthly profiles her as rural development visionary. She poses beside scale models, gesturing like Moses revealing commandments. Local resistance often stems from fear of progress, she explains to cameras with practiced concern. Our role is patient education. Education. Lady's about to get a master class in property law. Friday night brought escalation to criminal levels. Power cut at 2 a.m. Clean slice through my main electrical line, security cameras conveniently offline. I grabbed Uncle Silas's hunting rifle, not for violence, just comfort, and inspected the damage by flashlight. Professional job. Someone knew exactly where to cut. Saturday morning, power company lineman Chuck examined the severed cable with expert interest. Whoever did this understood electrical systems, he said, tobacco juice staining the gravel. This wasn't amateur vandalism. Security footage? Neighbor's camera caught white Tesla around midnight, registered to some HOA president. Shocking absolutely no one. Police report filed, but Officer Martinez explained the obvious. Hard proving who actually cut the line. Tesla owner claims she was home sleeping. Of course she does. Meanwhile, weekend crews worked overtime installing store fixtures, parking lots striped, landscaping planted. From the road, the plaza looks nearly ready for business. Vivian announced another photo opportunity. Ceremonial ribbon cutting 6 weeks before grand opening. More free publicity for development built entirely on stolen land. The irony improved my appetite for breakfast. Monday delivered peak desperation, restraining order claiming I intimidate residents with threatening behavior. What threatening behavior? Existing, waving from my porch, refusing to vanish when ordered. Tuesday courthouse hearing felt like community theater. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead while Vivian's legal team presented their evidence. Your Honor, this individual creates hostile environment, her lawyer declared with straight face. Residents fear for safety. Judge Hendricks, silver-haired woman who'd obviously heard every ridiculous excuse, reviewed their filing with visible skepticism. What specific threats occurred? He observes people from his residence. Sitting on one's own porch is illegal now? It's calculated intimidation designed to harass law-abiding citizens. The absurdity almost made me laugh. Drinking coffee on my inherited property had become criminal conspiracy in Vivian's reality. Motion denied, Judge Hendricks announced. Mr. Wellington enjoys full property rights. Vivian stormed out like toddler denied candy. Her lawyers followed, frantically whispering damage control. That evening, I made the call I'd been planning for months. Denver Drive took 2 hours through mountain curves that reminded me of Uncle Silas's paranoid warnings about city folk stealing mountain land. If he only knew how prophetic he'd been. Carmichael and Associates occupied 3 floors of downtown high-rise. Senior partner Janet Carmichael reviewed my documentation with professional fascination that gradually transformed into predatory excitement. This is the cleanest property case I've seen in 30 years, she said, spreading construction photos across polished conference table. Your uncle's deed is absolutely bulletproof. What's my position? Legally? You could halt construction tomorrow. She calculated on her laptop with obvious relish. But financially? Let them finish. Every invested dollar becomes recoverable damages. Current exposure? $38 million and climbing. Final completion value approximately $52 million. $52 million. Built on land I inherited for free. I want to wait until grand opening ceremony, I told her. Her predatory smile could have powered half of Denver. Maximum public humiliation. I like your style. We agreed on 40% contingency. Carmichael and Associates would handle the nuclear legal option for $20 million of final settlement. Driving home through darkness, I calculated my share. $32 million minimum. More money than electricians see in multiple lifetimes. Harassment continued through week 25. Anonymous flyers calling me job destroyer. Vandalized mailbox. Threatening phone calls at midnight. But now I had Denver's best property lawyers preparing Colorado's biggest real estate lawsuit. Construction reached 95% completion. Store signs installed. Employee training scheduled. Grand opening tickets selling fast. Let Vivian finish her masterpiece. Every final detail just makes the eventual destruction more spectacular. 3 days after courthouse humiliation, I made the drive that would flip everything upside down. The decision hit me while shaving that morning. Sarah's voice echoing in my memory. Marcus, sometimes the universe gives you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. Uncle Silas's deed wasn't just inheritance. It was justice served on a silver platter. Carmichael and Associates occupied 3 floors of Denver's fanciest glass tower. The kind of building where elevator rides cost more than most people's hourly wages. My reflection looked out of place. Retired electrician in Walmart jeans surrounded by marble and mahogany. Janet Carmichael welcomed me into a conference room overlooking the entire Front Range. Sharp-eyed woman about 60, with the predatory focus of someone who'd never lost an important case. Show me what brought you here, Mr. Wellington. I spread Uncle Silas's deed across her polished table like revealing buried treasure. The paper looked ancient and fragile, but the legal language remained bulletproof after 37 years. She studied every word through designer reading glasses while Denver traffic hummed 40 floors below. The silence stretched until my palms started sweating. Jesus Christ, she whispered finally. good or bad. This is property law pornography. Her eyes lit up like Christmas morning. Perfect filing, continuous tax payments, unbroken chain of title. Your uncle understood legal documentation better than most attorneys. The coffee in my styrofoam cup suddenly tasted like victory. And their construction? Janet pulled out a calculator with the enthusiasm of kid counting Halloween candy. Textbook trespass and conversion of property. Current investment $42 million. Projected completion value $58 million. $58 million, built entirely on land that cost me nothing but funeral expenses. My hands started shaking slightly. Not from nerves, from anticipation. What's our legal position? Nuclear. She opened thick case law books, flipping through precedents like battle plans. Colorado courts consistently hammer trespassers who build without permission. Average settlements run 3 to 5 times construction costs. Best case scenario? Her predatory smile could have melted steel. Full property value plus punitive damages for fraudulent surveys and harassment. We're looking at 70 to 90 million potential. The room started spinning slightly. $90 million, more money than small countries possessed. They'll claim adverse possession, I managed. Impossible. You've maintained continuous ownership, paid taxes, lived on the property. Their construction is just expensive trespassing with pretty architect drawings. She showed me case files from similar disputes. Property owners won every single time when documentation was this clean. Timeline? We file the week of grand opening. Maximum investment, maximum media coverage, maximum public humiliation. Janet's eyes gleamed with professional bloodlust. Your tormentor becomes defendant in Colorado's biggest property lawsuit. The irony tasted sweeter than wedding cake. Vivian's victory celebration would become her public destruction. Background check on Ms. Blackthorne reveals fascinating patterns, Janet continued, consulting thick files. Disbarred in Connecticut for real estate fraud. Similar schemes in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Jersey. Serial property scammer with federal exposure. The puzzle pieces clicked together perfectly. Vivian specialized in targeting vulnerable landowners, harassing them into cheap sales, then developing stolen property for massive profits. This time she'd picked someone who fought back. We'll also file federal racketeering charges. Interstate fraud pattern triggers RICO violations. FBI loves cases like this. Federal prison. Vivian wasn't just losing money, she was facing serious jail time. What do I do now? Nothing. Go home, wave at workers, let them finish every detail. The bigger their investment, the bigger your payday becomes. We agreed on 35% contingency. Still left me with 60 million minimum. More money than electricians see in 10 lifetimes. Driving home through mountain curves, I felt something missing since Sarah's death. Genuine excitement about tomorrow. For 2 years, every sunrise brought only grief and loneliness. Now each morning meant watching my enemies dig deeper holes with million-dollar shovels. Back at construction, workers installed final exterior elements. Store signage, landscaping, parking lot striping. The project looked magazine perfect, exactly what Vivian envisioned for her crowning achievement. All built on my inherited kingdom. I walked through like touring a museum of beautiful mistakes. Javier waved from his trailer, hard hat tilted at cocky angle. 6 weeks to grand opening, Jefe. You excited for the celebration? More excited than you know. If he only understood I was planning the most expensive surprise party in Colorado history. That evening, I stood on my porch calculating revenge mathematics. Vivian had spent 18 months building her dream on my property while calling me trailer trash and threatening eviction. In 6 weeks, I'd own everything she'd built plus enough money to fund small nations. The mountain air smelled like justice, diesel fuel, and sweet vindication. The morning after my lawyer meeting, everything changed. No more defense. Time for the most spectacular property ambush in Colorado history. Step 1. Evidence fortress. My workshop became mission control, smelling like fresh printer ink and sweet revenge. Construction photos organized chronologically on every wall. Permit applications sorted by trade. Video documentation of harassment incidents labeled and dated. Everything cross-referenced like preparing for nuclear war, because that's exactly what this was. Legal warfare with $60 million stakes. County clerk's office provided the ammunition. Dorothy, grandmother clerk who'd worked there since Disco died, pulled files thick as dictionaries. Funny coincidence, she mentioned while copying permits. All these documents reference property boundaries that don't match original surveys. How wrong? 47 acres wrong. Her wink could have powered Christmas lights. I learned something valuable from my electrician days. When wiring doesn't match blueprints, somebody's getting electrocuted. Same principle applies to property law. When permits don't match deeds, somebody's getting shocked. Professional surveyor Mike Coleman arrived with equipment worth more than my truck. His team planted stakes across my property while construction crews worked 50 yards away. Need this precise enough for federal court, I told him. His eyes lit up with professional challenge. Federal court means serious money. More serious than you imagine. While Mike's crew worked, I started phase 2, rally the troops. Javier became my unofficial intelligence source, sharing construction schedules over cold beers after work. Senora Blackthorne very nervous lately, he mentioned. Keeps asking workers if anyone talks to you. What do you tell her? That you're a very nice man who brings cold water, he grinned. She doesn't like that answer. The workers started actively helping my documentation. Photos of permit violations, safety shortcuts, corner cutting to meet deadlines. Union guys recognized quality when they saw it, and they saw Vivian cutting every corner possible. This lady no bueno, Jose whispered, showing me electrical work that barely met code. Rush job, cheap materials, dangerous shortcuts. More evidence for my growing case file. Janet Carmichael called with intelligence that made my morning coffee taste like Victory champagne. FBI opened preliminary investigation on Blackthorne, she reported. Interstate fraud pattern triggers federal jurisdiction. How many previous victims? 15 confirmed cases across 4 states. 23 million in documented damages. She's been perfecting this scam for decade. 23 million in previous theft. Vivian wasn't local bully. She was professional criminal running sophisticated operation. Timeline for federal charges? 6 months after civil case concludes. FBI wants our evidence for their prosecution. Perfect. Civil lawsuit destroys her financially. Federal charges destroy her freedom. Mike Coleman's survey results exceeded expectations. His measurements proved Vivian's entire development sat completely within my property boundaries. Their survey was deliberately falsified, he reported. No professional surveyor makes 47-acre mistakes accidentally. Criminal fraud? Textbook case. Whoever signed their survey reports committed felony. Another criminal charge for Vivian's growing collection. Sarah Finley, investigative reporter from Denver Post, called that afternoon. Janet had leaked just enough information to trigger journalistic instincts. Heard rumors about major property dispute in Pine Ridge Valley, she said. Any comment? Come see me grand opening week. Bring cameras. That serious? Bigger story than you're imagining. Construction hit final phase. Store fixtures installed, employee training scheduled, grand opening tickets selling fast. Vivian's victory celebration was becoming her public execution. I started infiltrating her social circles through local diner gossip. Turns out half the town resented HOA tyranny, but feared Vivian's retaliation. My upcoming reveal would liberate entire community from her reign of terror. That woman's destroyed more lives than cancer, muttered Bill, the diner owner. Someone needs to take her down hard. Someone will, I promised. Evening planning sessions became ritual. Documents organized, witness statements collected, media contacts established, everything coordinated for maximum impact during grand opening week. The technical beauty of my legal trap impressed even me. Property law creates automatic damages when someone builds without permission. Every dollar invested becomes recoverable plus punitive damages. Construction photography revealed another advantage. Vivian's crew had made several code violations in rush to completion. Electrical shortcuts, plumbing errors, structural corner cutting. More ammunition for my legal nuclear strike. 3 weeks until grand opening. 3 weeks for Vivian to perfect her $58 million mistake, while I prepared the most expensive surprise party in state history. I stood on my porch each sunset, watching security lights illuminate buildings that would soon belong to me. The autumn air smelled like diesel fuel, fresh paint, and approaching justice. Time to enjoy the countdown to Vivian's destruction. 2 weeks before grand opening, Vivian's mask finally slipped completely. She appeared at my door Tuesday morning without lawyers or muscle, just raw desperation wrapped in wrinkled designer clothes. The smell of stress sweat mixed with expensive perfume created an aroma of impending doom. We need to discuss resolution, she said, voice cracking like thin ice. "Coffee's fresh if you want some." Her hands shook slightly, reaching for the cup. 250,000, cash, today, plus relocation to premium manufactured home community near Denver. $250,000 to abandon my $60 million inheritance. The woman was mathematically challenged beyond repair. "That's substantial," I said, letting hope creep into her desperate eyes. "Finally, some sense. We can solve this like civilized adults." Civilized. Coming from someone who'd spent months calling me trailer trash while building illegally on my land. Need time to consider such a major decision. Her eye developed visible twitch. How long? Until grand opening week. Life-changing money requires careful thought. She agreed reluctantly, probably planning final pressure tactics. What she couldn't know was I'd bought 2 more weeks of construction completion while FBI built their criminal case. Here's where Vivian made her first catastrophic error. Someone, definitely not me, of course, reported her environmental permit violations to State Review Board. $58 million in commercial development apparently requires environmental studies she'd conveniently skipped. State inspector arrived Thursday with testing equipment and bureaucratic attitude sharper than mountain wind. "Ma'am, these construction permits lack required environmental impact assessments," he informed Vivian during their parking lot confrontation. "Those assessments were filed properly months ago." "Negative. Our database shows 0 environmental filings for this project." I watched from my porch while sipping coffee that tasted like karma concentrate. Their voices carried perfectly in the crisp morning air. "Construction moratorium until environmental compliance verified. Fines range $50,000 to $5 million depending on violations discovered. $5 million in penalties, added to my $60 million lawsuit." Vivian's empire was collapsing faster than controlled demolition. Friday escalated her desperation to criminal levels. Sheriff Martinez visited that evening with fascinating intelligence. Someone offered County Environmental Officer $20,000 cash for favorable inspection reports. People do desperate things when cornered. Desperate enough to commit felony bribery. Anonymous tip led to recorded sting operation. 20 grand in attempted bribes. Another federal charge for Vivian's expanding rap sheet. "You staying safe, Alexander? Tensions running high around here. Safer than some people's legal situations." Weekend brought Vivian's most creative insanity yet. Whisper campaign claiming my mobile home housed methamphetamine manufacturing operation. My woodworking chemicals were actually drug production supplies according to her deranged theory. Small-town gossip spreads like Colorado wildfire, but backfired spectacularly when locals laughed at the accusations. "Marcus cooking meth?" snorted Bill from the diner while flipping pancakes. "Guy reads instruction manuals for opening soup cans." The rumors reached Sheriff Martinez, who requested voluntary workshop inspection. I welcomed him in, showed my legitimate tools and Uncle Silas's document collection. "Sorry about this circus, Alexander. Desperate people spread desperate lies. Desperation makes folks stupid." If he only knew how catastrophically stupid Vivian's mistakes were becoming. By day 10, construction reached absolute completion. Store signs blazing, employees trained, inventory fully stocked. The shopping center looked magazine perfect, $60 million retail paradise built entirely on my inherited property. Vivian's guest list read like Colorado power structure directory. Governor, senators, business moguls, media personalities. 800 guests paying $500 each for community triumph celebration. $400,000 in ticket revenue for party celebrating massive real estate theft. I purchased 20 additional tickets for my expanding entourage. Sarah Finley updated me on her investigation. Connecticut victims organizing class action against Blackthorn. 18 families robbed of $37 million in property value. Federal timeline. FBI raided her storage units yesterday. Found forged surveys, fraudulent contracts, offshore account records. This woman's been running sophisticated criminal enterprise. Civil lawsuit would bankrupt her. Federal charges would imprison her. Environmental violations would destroy any remaining reputation. Perfect legal trifecta. Meanwhile, I maintained my friendly neighbor performance. Morning waves to workers, helpful directions for delivery trucks, enthusiastic conversations about the exciting new shopping opportunities. Everyone assumed I was thrilled about convenient retail access. None suspected I was counting hours until owning everything outright. 1 week before grand opening, Vivian attempted her final Hail Mary pass. Anonymous LLC offered $300,000 cash for immediate property sale with permanent relocation incentive. $300,000 for land containing $60 million in illegal construction. I nearly choked laughing. Tell your client I'm weighing all available options, I informed the sweating lawyer who delivered paperwork. That evening, I surveyed final party preparations from my porch. Catering trucks, decoration crews, sound equipment installation. Professional event management for Colorado's most expensive legal disaster. 7 days until Vivian's victory celebration became her public execution. The mountain air carried sense of fresh catastrophe and approaching justice. 5 days before grand opening, Vivian crossed the line from desperation into complete insanity. I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of breaking glass. Someone had thrown a brick through my workshop window with a note tied around it. Leave now or face consequences. The smell of kerosene hung in the mountain air. My security cameras caught everything. Vivian's white Tesla parked on the access road while a masked figure poured accelerant around my mobile home's foundation. Arson attempt. On video, with her vehicle clearly visible. Sheriff Martinez arrived within 20 minutes of my call, anger radiating from him like heat from a furnace. "This stops now," he declared, studying the footage on my phone. "Attempted arson is federal crime when it crosses state lines as part of conspiracy. She's getting desperate. Desperate enough to burn down your home with you sleeping inside." He called for backup and crime scene investigators. "We're arresting her tonight." But Vivian had vanished. Tesla found abandoned at Denver Airport, owner nowhere to be found. She'd fled rather than face arson charges, leaving her grand opening ceremony in chaos. Without their fearless leader, the HOA board met in emergency session. I watched from my porch as luxury cars filled the community center parking lot, voices carrying across the valley like panicked geese. "The environmental citations alone will bankrupt us," someone shouted. "Insurance won't cover criminal liability," another voice added. "We need to distance ourselves from Vivian's actions immediately." Too little, too late. They'd enabled her fraud for years, collected HOA fees based on stolen land, and participated in harassment campaigns. Legal liability spread like spilled paint across everyone involved. Janet Carmichael called with updates that made my morning coffee taste like championship champagne. "Blackthorn's flight triggered federal manhunt," she reported. "FBI issued warrant for interstate flight to avoid prosecution. This just became massive federal case." Timeline for filing our lawsuit? Tomorrow morning, full media circus, courthouse steps, maximum publicity. Sarah Finley confirmed live coverage on Denver news channels. Tomorrow, after 18 months of harassment, threats, and attempted arson, justice would finally arrive with cameras rolling. That afternoon brought the most ironic development yet. Construction workers began removing equipment and materials, assuming project was canceled due to Vivian's disappearance. "Wait!" I called to Javier as he loaded tools into his truck. "Who authorized removal?" "HOA board canceled remaining work. Say project terminated due to legal complications." I almost laughed. They were dismantling $60 million in completed buildings because they finally realized they'd built on stolen land. "Leave everything exactly as is," I told him. "Big announcement coming soon." His weathered face showed confusion, but trust. "You say leave it, we leave it, Jefe." Because in 48 hours, everything would belong to me legally. Evening brought media preparation. Sarah Finley arrived with camera crew for preliminary interviews, setting up for tomorrow's courthouse announcement. "This story's going national," she said, adjusting lighting equipment on my porch. "Biggest property law case in Colorado history, plus FBI manhunt for fled defendant. Just want justice for Uncle Silas's legacy. You're about to get $60 million worth of justice." We rehearsed key talking points while her crew filmed B-roll footage of the completed shopping center. Every angle showed pristine commercial development built entirely within my property boundaries. Visual evidence doesn't lie. That night, I couldn't sleep from anticipation, not nervous energy, pure excitement about tomorrow's reveal. Sarah used to say I was most dangerous when completely calm and patient. Tomorrow would prove her right. Grand opening was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. Vivian's elaborate celebration would happen without her, hosted by HOA board members who didn't realize they were about to lose everything, 800 guests paying $500 each to witness the most expensive legal disaster in state history. I'd bought 30 tickets total. Friends, family, Janet's legal team, media contacts, my personal cheering section for Vivian's public destruction. Friday morning arrived with perfect Colorado sunshine. Crisp mountain air carried sounds of final party preparations, catering deliveries, decoration installation, sound system testing, all happening on my inherited property, all about to become evidence in federal court. By noon, Janet's legal team had assembled complete case documentation. Property deeds, fraudulent surveys, construction permits, harassment evidence, attempted arson footage, everything organized for maximum courtroom impact. Strongest property rights case I've seen in 30 years, Janet confirmed. Defendant fled jurisdiction, federal charges pending, environmental violations documented. This is legal slam dunk. Settlement expectations? Full property value plus punitive damages, 70 to 80 million minimum, $80 million. More money than small cities possessed. That evening I performed my final ritual as poor harassed neighbor. Sat on my porch, waved at security guards, watched lights illuminate buildings that would belong to me in 16 hours. Tomorrow, Vivian's victory celebration would become her public funeral. The mountain air smelled like approaching vindication. Saturday morning dawned perfect and clear, like the universe had ordered custom weather for Justice Day. By 9 a.m., news trucks lined the courthouse square. Denver channels, Colorado Springs stations, even national networks had caught wind of the story. Local developer flees state ahead of massive property lawsuit dominated morning broadcasts. I arrived wearing my best shirt, the one Sarah bought me for our wedding anniversary, and carrying Uncle Silas's original deed in a manila folder that would soon be worth $80 million. Janet Carmichael stood at the courthouse steps podium like a general preparing for glorious battle. Behind her, poster-sized displays showed aerial photographs of the shopping center alongside Uncle Silas's hand-drawn property map, perfect visual evidence for television cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, Janet began as cameras rolled, we're here to discuss the largest property rights violation in Colorado history. The crowd included my cheering section, construction workers, diner regulars, neighbors who'd witnessed Vivian's harassment campaign. Even Mike Coleman, my surveyor, stood ready with technical testimony. 18 months ago, the Ridgemont Estates HOA began construction of a $60 million commercial development. Today, we're filing suit to prove that entire development sits on land illegally taken from my client, Alexander Wellington. Murmur rippled through assembled reporters and onlookers. $60 million in disputed property made for compelling television. I stepped to the microphone, feeling calmer than I had in 2 years. I want to tell you about my great-uncle Silas Wellington, I began, holding up his faded deed. Paranoid old guy who filed this property ownership document in 1987 and paid taxes religiously for 36 years. Cameras zoomed on the official paperwork while I explained the inheritance, Vivian's harassment, and my patient decision to let construction finish. Every day they worked made my legal case stronger. Every million invested made their eventual mistake more expensive. Then came the moment I'd been planning for 18 months. This morning, Sheriff Martinez confirmed that Vivian Blackthorne fled Colorado rather than face federal arson charges. She tried to burn down my home rather than admit she'd stolen my land. The crowd gasped audibly. Attempted murder elevated the story from civil dispute to criminal conspiracy. But here's what Ms. Blackthorne didn't realize. A white Tesla suddenly screeched into the courthouse parking lot. Vivian burst out wearing prison orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, flanked by FBI agents. Apparently they'd caught her at Chicago Airport trying to board international flight to non-extradition country. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. There's the defendant now, I announced as cameras swiveled to capture her perp walk. Vivian saw the media circus and completely lost control. "This is fraud," she screamed at the cameras. "He forged that deed. This is conspiracy to steal my development." FBI agent Rodriguez approached the microphone with professional calm. "Ms. Blackthorne was arrested attempting to flee prosecution for multiple felonies, including arson, interstate fraud, and racketeering conspiracy." The crowd buzzed with excitement. Live arrest footage during property lawsuit announcement made for incredible television drama. My client owns this land legally and has documentation proving Ms. Blackthorne's construction constitutes $60 million in property theft, Janet announced, displaying the survey comparison that showed total trespass. Vivian's screaming intensified. "You can't steal my buildings. I spent everything. This will destroy hundreds of jobs." Ma'am, you built on someone else's property without permission, Agent Rodriguez explained patiently. That's called theft, regardless of how much money you invested. The beautiful irony was perfect. Vivian's grand opening celebration was scheduled to begin in 4 hours, but the guest of honor was being arrested on live television. Sarah Finley stepped forward for the exclusive interview I'd promised. Mr. Wellington, what's your message to property owners facing similar harassment? Document everything. Stay patient. Let criminals destroy themselves with their own greed. That soundbite would play on news channels for weeks. Governor Morrison's spokesman announced immediate cancellation of his grand opening appearance. Regional business leaders withdrew endorsements. The shopping center's anchor tenant declared lease termination due to fraudulent property representation. Vivian's empire collapsed in real time on live television. As FBI agents loaded her into their vehicle, she made one final desperate attempt at negotiation. Marcus, we can work this out. I'll give you 50% ownership. I walked over to her car window for my closing statement. Vivian, I already own 100%. Thanks for building it with your money. Her scream of rage was audible 3 blocks away. The courthouse crowd erupted in applause as justice was served with perfect mountain sunshine and national media coverage. 6 months later, I stood in the same courthouse where Vivian had been arrested, but this time for settlement announcement rather than criminal charges. The final numbers were even better than projected. $87 million. Property value, construction costs, punitive damages, legal fees, and interest compounded into the largest civil settlement in Colorado history. Vivian received 25 years federal prison for racketeering, arson conspiracy, and interstate fraud. Her Connecticut victims finally got justice too. FBI seized her offshore accounts containing $40 million in stolen property proceeds. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was transformation. I kept my promise to Sarah's memory by establishing the Sarah Wellington Cancer Research Endowment at University of Colorado. $20 million to fund treatment research that might spare other families our heartbreak. The remaining money created the Pine Ridge Valley Conservation Trust, Uncle Silas's 47 acres preserved as permanent community park and nature preserve. No development, no HOA, no Vivian-style bullies allowed. The shopping center buildings? I donated them to the city for conversion into community services. Senior center, library expansion, youth recreation facility, and small business incubator space. Local newspaper called it revenge transformed into community healing. I preferred thinking of it as Sarah's influence making something beautiful from something ugly. Javier Rodriguez became park supervisor, managing hiking trails and educational programs with the same pride he'd shown during construction. His crews maintained the property they'd built, just for community benefit instead of corporate profit. Best boss I ever had, Jefe, he said during our ribbon-cutting ceremony. You turned construction project into something that helps everybody. The annual Truth and Transparency Festival happens every September on the anniversary of Vivian's arrest. Local families gather for barbecue, live music, and storytelling about standing up to corrupt authority. This year's festival featured special guest appearance by FBI agent Rodriguez, who explained how citizens can report property fraud and corruption. Sarah Finley received Journalism Award for her investigative series about interstate real estate scams. Even the former Ridgemont Estates residents joined the celebration. Once Vivian's grip was broken, they formed a Democratic Community Council replacing the dictatorial HOA structure. We were so afraid of her retaliation that we forgot we had power to resist, explained former HOA treasurer Bill Matthews. Your courage showed us how to fight back. Personal healing surprised me most. For 2 years after Sarah's death, every sunrise brought only grief and loneliness. Working wood helped, but didn't cure the emptiness. Fighting Vivian's bullying gave me purpose beyond survival. Winning the case provided resources beyond imagination. Creating community benefit from criminal destruction gave meaning to Sarah's memory. I built a modest cabin on the park's edge, close enough to oversee operations, distant enough for privacy. Uncle Silas would approve of the simplicity, and the paranoia justified vindication. The rescued dog I adopted, a German shepherd named Justice, patrols the property like she understands the irony of her name and duties. Morning coffee tastes better now, served on a porch overlooking hiking trails where shopping center parking lots were planned. Children play on equipment funded by the woman who tried to evict me. The Colorado legislature passed the Marcus Wellington Property Rights Act, requiring independent verification before any major construction begins. No more fraudulent surveys, No more corrupt inspectors, no more Vivian-style land grabs. Real estate lawyers study the case as textbook example of patience defeating corruption. Law schools assign it as required reading about property rights and criminal conspiracy. But my favorite outcome happened last month. A widow in Grand Junction called asking advice about HOA harassment over her late husband's workshop. I drove over with copies of Uncle Silas's deed and Alexander Wellington's legal precedent. Her bullies backed down within 48 hours. Sometimes justice creates more justice. Sometimes standing up to one bully empowers others to resist different bullies. Sometimes patience and documentation defeat corruption and greed. As Sarah always said, the universe gives us exactly what we need, exactly when we need it. Uncle Silas's paranoid land purchase became the weapon that destroyed a criminal enterprise and protected an entire community. Evening sunsets paint the preserved valley in colors that Uncle Silas never lived to see but somehow made possible. Justice tastes like mountain air and vindicated patience.
So Alexander inherited worthless lands from this Uncle Silas and turned it into an $87 million retirement plan. But here's what really happened. A grieving widower who lost everything to cancer bills just taught us the most expensive lesson about property rights in American history. See, Alexander could have stopped that construction on day one, waive Uncle Silas' 1987 deed and send Vivian packing. Instead, he let her spend 18 months and $58 million building his shopping centers for him. That's not luck, that's strategy. That's the understanding that sometimes the best way to defeat a bully is to hand them a shovel and watch them dig. Vivian called him trailer trash, while literally building him a fortune. She cut his power lines while he was documenting federal crimes. She fled the country while he was cashing the biggest settlement check in Colorado history. The man turned patience into a superpower. Here's my question. When someone's trying to steamroll you, do you fight back immediately? Or do you Alexander Wellington it and let them destroy themselves? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe if you believe good things come to those who wait. Next week, the grandmother who bankrupted her HOA with a single records request. Document everything. Stay patient. Let bullies be bullies.